Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to r/EntitledPeople, where parents think it's okay to charge money to see their newborns, and neighbors complain about not being able to steal Wi-Fi. Guys, strap yourselves in because it's going to be another crazy episode where people think it's all about them. So I, a 34-year-old female, gave birth on Christmas Day. Now, before my son's birth and to lessen visits, my husband and I made a list in October, and we sent it out to everybody. Some of the rules include: 1. You must be up to date on all vaccines. If you feel sick in any way, do not visit. 2. Let us know a week beforehand so we can arrange a date and time. 3. No smokers. 4. No phone calls or visits between 7:30 p.m. and 10 p.m., and you can only stay for an hour. No picking up the baby without consent, no advice, no perfume or deodorant. 5. No is no, and we won't explain why. 6. No pictures to be taken or posted on social media. 7. If you visit the first time, you'll be expected to give the mom, me, a gift card, and a gift card for the baby from our approved list. 8. Before you ever come, no matter how many times you've been here, you'll be given a list of either food or groceries to bring with you, and a chore list of your choosing. And 9. No more than 2 visits a week per person. This is to help keep the visits to minimum, and no one can complain about favoritism because everyone's treated equally. Which brings me to the current situation. So my sister-in-law, who's 20 years old, studies in a different part of the country, and she's rarely home. And she asked to visit last week before she had to go back to school. So with that, we set up a date for her to come visit with a link to our gift list. We then sent her the takeout we'd like, including the chores that she can choose from. Now, she immediately texted back saying that she's broke and asked if she can do extra chores instead. Me and the husband talked about it, and we came to the decision that if we bent the rules for one person, everybody would want the same treatment. At this, we told her no. We were very clear about the rules, and maybe next time she could visit. She even begged and said she would clean the whole house because it would be June before she's able to see my baby. We told her no is no, and she left this morning, and we got multiple texts from my in-laws belittling us for using our child as a cash grab. My husband simply replied that it's our rules and no one deserves special treatment, then told his family that they were on a timeout and then blocked them. Since then, my family and friends have told us that we're wrong because she's a broke college student, and they would have understood if we looked the other way once. Now, we've tried reaching out to his sister, but she won't reply. So pretty much everybody in the comments say that OP and her husband are such a-holes. Now, when I first read the post and I saw the list, I was like, okay, that's fair. There's no smoking, no visiting between so-and-so times, and that's normal for a parent to ask. And then the last few points came. Everyone's expected to give the mom a gift card and a gift for the baby. And then you'll have a list of food items to bring and chores to do. Like, the whole post goes from 0 to entitled so fast. And the other thing is they planned this list in October, a few months before they had the baby. Which means they were sitting there and they were like, oh, hey, so I was thinking, how do you think we can extort our friends and family using the newborn? Chores and gifts? Chores and gifts, 100%. So my entire life, my parents have made promises to pay for my wedding. As early as middle school, I remember my dad joking to his friends about when he can retire from his job because he has to save up for his 2 daughters' weddings. I tried to discuss budgets with them in February 2020 while we were on vacation together, and they reiterated that they'll pay for my wedding. Full stop. I then asked if I had a smaller wedding, if I could keep the remainder of the budget, and they said no, they'll pay for my wedding. I then asked what my budget was, and they said we'd discuss it when time came. In August of 2020 and onwards, I'd been mentioning that my now fiancé and I were discussing engagement because he was trying to see what the break-even point was for refinancing his townhouse. So my parents have had plenty of warning. But when I got engaged last month and told them what the average cost of a wedding in my state is, it's apparently more than double what they spent on my sister's wedding. So they said they can only afford to spend on me what they spent on her. Now, my parents paid for all of my sister's college. That wasn't covered by her scholarships or my grandparents' small contribution. Myself, on the other hand, didn't go to college. And my grandparents gave me the money, a few $1,000s, they had saved up for my college. My parents did not give me my college fund in any way. They just rolled it into retirement. Now, my parents can definitely afford to contribute more. They take a big vacation every year. They take cruises, road trips, theme parks for 10 days at a time. They've been commenting that they can't travel this year because they have to pay for my wedding, but they're already planning trips for 2023 and 2024. I told them that they've told me for years now that they would pay for my wedding. that my sister got all her expenses paid when she was 22 years old. But I've been on my own financially since I was 18 because she made different choices in life to go to college. Well, these were my choices in life. To marry a white-collar man in a city in 2022 at 29 instead of a blue-collar man in the country in 2015 at 22. Now, based on that discussion, they've upped their contribution somewhat, but my fiancé and I will still be responsible for about $10,000. And I'm still bitter every time I look at my wedding budget because it feels like favoritism to me. Okay, so scrolling through the comments, basically everybody agrees that she's the entitled, spoiled brat in the situation, and that she's not entitled to her parents' money. OP also commented that her wedding is ending up costing around $35,000, and she's upset that her parents can only give her $25,000, which is absurd, and $25,000 is way better than $0. And she also mentioned that she lives in a state where the average cost of a wedding is double what her parents gave her sister. So what state does she live in where people are just casually spending $50,000 on a wedding? So the top comment of the post, which has a whopping 8.2 thousand upvotes, says this: "You are the a-hole. Apparently your sister was more mature in 2015 than you are in 2022. It seems like you're judging your blue-collared brother-in-law also, but clearly proud of your white-collar man who can't afford to pay for his own wedding." Okay, so I've just started running an online Dungeons & Dragons game. The last couple of sessions, I noticed my connection was really bad. The usual stuff didn't help. So after a while, I found out a couple of months ago that my neighbor had borrowed the Wi-Fi password from my girlfriend because they were having internet connection problems. Now, this was only supposed to be for a day or two, while their new service provider connected them. Saturday before last, I changed the Wi-Fi password. The connection's better. On Sunday, the neighbor's wife turns up. She knocks on our door and says, "Hey, is something wrong with the internet? I can't seem to connect." I told her I changed the password, and she says, "Oh, can I have the new one then?" I tell her, "No, you were only supposed to borrow it for a few days while you got your own connection, and I couldn't get a connection when I needed to." Now at this, there's a short discussion that boils down to, "Oh, we didn't think you would mind." Now I wouldn't have minded if it was for a few days, but I told her, "I didn't mind. If it was for a few days, absolutely sure, but it's been about 3 months of you using our internet." She then told me that I'm paying for internet anyways, and that I shouldn't be so selfish. I then replied with, "Yeah, I pay for it, and when you're taking something I pay for and making it worse for me, that's gonna be an issue." So that evening, my girlfriend mentions that she got a text from the neighbors saying that they were having problems with their internet again, and if she could let them have the new password. Now, I got mad that she decided to go and ask my girlfriend when I specifically told her no, so I walk over and knocked on the door. I had another chat with the neighbors, which boils down to something like this. She says, "But we need the internet. My daughter needs it for school, and my husband loves his games." I then say to her, "Then get your own connection." I did, but they can't get out until Wednesday. Can't you just let us have your password for 2 days? I gave in at this point and said, "So just 2 more days then. I'm gonna change the password again on Wednesday." And her, somehow sounding like she's doing me a favor, says, "If you must." Now, me being me, I forgot Wednesday. I don't remember until game night comes around, and I notice the connection's a bit dodgy when I'm setting up. I change the password again, and everything clears up. The next day, the husband comes and knocks on my door, and I get a 10-minute lecture from the husband saying that I should stop harassing him and their family by cutting off his internet in the middle of him playing games. He also said that I'm ruining his daughter's life by preventing her from studying, that I needed to give them the new password so his daughter could load stuff on YouTube. I then close my door, walk away, and enjoy a beer. But it's not over there. Monday comes around, and this is glued. Yes, it's glued, not taped to my door. It's a note that says, "I hope you're happy, F-tard. You have no right to cut off my internet. You stopped my daughter from streaming, and you ruined her chance of becoming a YouTuber. I hope you're effing happy." Aren't those some awesome neighbors? Leeching internet and getting mad when it stops. And then they have the audacity to tape a frickin' note to the door. So yeah, OP posts a picture of the note taped to the door, and clearly the photo was taken with a potato. But man, the entitlement of some people. Like, just pay for your own internet. I work as a front desk associate for a privately owned inn. I've been yelled at, called names, and yada yada, and I've dealt with them. However, yesterday was a surprise. A very tall, bleach blonde, older German woman comes in, and she rang my bell to come to the front. She then asked if we had a room. She booked it via online. Okay, No problem. I check her in, and cool. So not even half an hour later, she comes to my desk, and she rings the bell again. I was doing laundry, so I run up the stairs to see what's going on, and the woman starts yelling at me like a crazy woman about a fly in the pool room. Now, the inn is in a wooded area, and the area has tons of lakes. Like, what else did you expect? I explained this to her as she was dripping wet on the tile with her makeup running. I was pleasant, but she was pressing it. The woman was requesting her money back. But we can't do that after you checked in, and it's in bold, large letters when you sign the paperwork, and I explained this to her as well. She then throws a tantrum. She goes back and changed into her clothes, and about 10 minutes later, the bell rings again. This time, she was spamming it like 1,000 times. I was down in the basement finishing a load of laundry. I came back up and she continues to yell at me. So at this point, I call my assistant manager and asked her what I should do. She then told me to call the GM, which I did. Now, my GM is awesome. The most soft-spoken woman and very level-headed. She said she'll be there in 15 minutes. I then told the woman that I had contacted my boss's boss. Now, hearing boss's boss, the woman lights up and she says, "Good," with a smirk on her face. Now, while I waited for the GM, I was taking care of a family with 4 kids that wanted to go swimming. The woman rudely interrupts while I was speaking with them, telling them not to spend any money with us because of a bug problem, and that I'm a very rude and bitchy person. She said that in front of children, mind you. Less than 15 minutes later, my GM pulls up, and I point her to the woman. The lady thought she had won, with her smug grin towards me, and I go back to doing what I was doing. About 10 minutes later, after the woman very abruptly leaves, I ask my GM what happened. My GM, bless her for being a short, red-headed older lady, looks at me and smiles. She looks down at the ground and shook her head. She looks back at me and tells me everything. Apparently, the woman called me a bitch again to her and hoped that I would get fired for being so rude. She then demanded a refund and she was declined. My GM then showed her the paperwork and it's in the clause that the woman signed. And I do tell every guest that checks in that it's non-refundable once they check in. My GM continues about how the woman berates her and said how unclean we are because of a couple of bugs in the pool room. So since the woman marches out of there, the GM and I go check the room. We find that the woman ripped off all the covers on the beds, took all the covers off the cushions on the couch, and threw most of the towels all over the room. But that wasn't all. She then took the remaining towels, drenched them with water, and threw them on the bathroom floor. She also ripped the shower head out of the wall, and she basically let the tub overflow to the point where it soaked the carpet outside of the bathroom. The room was soaking wet. This woman, I swear, was one of the worst. Her whole demeanor was of a spoiled, entitled brat that doesn't like being told no. What a crazy woman. She basically threw a full-on tantrum for not getting a refund. And seriously, who the heck rips a shower head out of the wall at a hotel? They need to call police on this one, and I sure hope she got charged with vandalism. So, a quick backstory. My friend and family friend own a beach house in a small beach town, and there are some really entitled people who live there, thinking that they own the beach down there. So the story is, my family friend took her family, which was her husband, mother, children, and grandchildren, down to the pier so they could go swimming. Because family friend's mom was elderly, both her and her mom decided to stay under the pavilion in the shade while watching everybody else swim. At first, everything was going good. It looked like everybody was having a good time. And then cue Karen and her family of 20 plus people gathering inside the small pavilion, setting up food, tables, and chairs directly behind the family friend and her mother. My family friend could tell that this was the person their neighbor had mentioned before because of the way he described her. Family friend had still tried to be civil, and when she saw the woman, she tried to ask her to nicely move, saying, "Hey, would you mind moving your party over a little bit? My mom and I barely have any space to move." At this, the Karen says, "Excuse me, we happen to live here, so we can do what we want." Friend tells her, "This pavilion doesn't belong to anybody, it's public property." Now, upon hearing this, the woman's still refusing to move, and my family friend's not a fan of arguing, so she and her mom just tried sucking it up and continued to watch their kids and grandkids play in the water. Unfortunately, that was short-lived, as Karen's family starts blasting music and yelling inside the pavilion. Then I guess Karen's kid comes along on a jet ski. The entire family saw him coming and began cheering, screaming his name, etc. The guy came extremely close to netting on the other side of the dock, and he began doing figure eights on his jet ski, splashing water on every swimmer nearby and creating huge waves. Everybody at the end of the dock quickly got out when the kids started doing this, and her kids and grandkids weren't deep in the water either, so everybody was fine. After a few minutes, the kid finally leaves and everybody goes back in the water, but the Karen's family still hasn't calmed down. Finally, the beachgoers saw flashing lights of a police car pull up to the beach area. Everybody smiled, as they knew Karen and her family were going to get in trouble. Karen and her family saw the police car and they attempted to ignore it, and suddenly grew quieter. The officer gets out of his car and approaches Karen and says, "Hello ma'am, may I have a word with you?" At this, Karen acts innocent and she says, "What's wrong, officer?" The officer tells her that he's been receiving numerous complaints through the past half hour in regards to her party causing a disturbance. Hearing that, Karen says, "What? We haven't been doing anything." This is when my family friend comes in and says, "Officer, they've been yelling and screaming the entire time they've been here. They've been blasting music, and somebody from their family comes by on a jet ski extremely close to the dock and started to show off splashing everybody." Karen hears this and says, "Mind your own damn business. We can do what we want." At this point, the officer says, "Alright, this is how it's gonna work out. You can either move your family outside the pavilion so people can have room to sit, or you can leave the beach altogether." And Karen freaks out at this. She screams, "You can't do that! We have a beach house right over there. We have a right to be here." The officer then tells her that she can either move her party over there, or move her party outside the pavilion. And she screams, "This is unacceptable. You can't do this to us. What's your name? I'll make sure to write a report about you." The officer then gives his name and badge number, and she says, "Alright, I'm gonna call your station and make sure you get fired." He then tells her that the station's well aware of everything going on right now, and if she fails to comply, she'll be fined and removed from the premises, whether her house is here or not. Karen's having none of this. So instead of leaving like any other person would do, she grabs a sandwich from one of the bags she brought and throws it right at the officer. Of course, the officer without hesitation grabbed her and cuffed her. The other members of her family were growing mad at the officer for arresting her, but they didn't fight back. He then tells her, "This is your last warning, ma'am. You either take the party elsewhere, or I'm gonna bring you back to the station. You're very lucky that I'm not putting you in my police car right now." The woman finally cooperated and she was released. She didn't go completely free, however, as all the adults in her family were fined. And she was fined the heaviest for assaulting an officer. The grumpy family grabbed their stuff and they left. The officer didn't leave until he knew they were gone. A couple days later, some new rules were put in place, that no partying of any kind would be allowed on the beach because of Karen. A patrol officer has also been sent to inspect the pier every once in a while each day to make sure that Karen and her family weren't doing this again. And so far, since my family's friend have been down there, they haven't. But they're still extremely loud, blasting music on the beach and inside of their house. Leave it up to an entitled Karen to ruin parties on the beach for everybody, right? I would have loved to have seen her get arrested after assaulting that officer with a sandwich. What was she thinking? And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the stories today. If you did, give the video a thumbs up. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, an entitled Karen assaults OP for not obeying her in a store. It's such a crazy story, so go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy, we'll see you guys in the next one. We love you.